Did you know that a blue-winged olive doesn't have blue wings and it is an olive? I pulled a few BWO materials from inventory, so BWO bodies could be this color, or even this color. The body of a blue-winged olive can be brownish yellow, light brown, dark brown, greenish brown. There's even a small eastern blue-winged olive that has a bright green body, and it darkens shortly after the fly emerges. Take a look at these mayfly pictures. All mayflies have segmented bodies. Most are very tiny, size 18 and smaller, and the wings of the adult or dun are upright and as long or longer than the body. The BWO is a mayfly, so it has upright wings, but the wings are not blue, they're a medium bluish gray. If you'd like to see several species of BWO, check out the website troutnut.com, and Iowa State also has a site called bugguide.net that has some BWO pictures on it. Links are in the description. Troutnet.com, I have to say, has one of the best collections of close-up aquatic insect photos that I've found on the internet. In this video, we'll tie the small eastern blue-winged olive using a Goose Biot to form the body. And if you like the video, please take time to subscribe and like. It helps out the channel a whole lot. We're going to try a small eastern blue-winged olive today. This is a standard dry fly hook, size 18. Give you an idea of the size of this hook, there is a standard US dime. I would suggest, if you can find them, that you use a hook like a TMC 101, which is a standard dry fly hook with a straight or ring eye. In other words, this is not a down eye. I'm using an olive Veevus 16/0 thread. I started about a third of the way back and work back to the bend. Clip off the tag. I want to take 2 or 3 wraps on top of one another just to create a little bump. I'm going to use barbs from a standard spade hackle feather. These come off the edge of a cape, and you'll notice on this, I'll just spread these out, there's almost no webbing on these at all. Webbing would be the little fuzzy stuff right in the middle. And so what I want to do is stroke them down like that and get them to stand out straight. The tail is going to go in that direction, so I want to take them off this side of the feathers. So I'm going to pull them out, and I like to kind of grab them this way, about 1 inch or a 1/2 inch worth of feathers, and cut them off. And I want this to be about an eye length longer than the hook, the total hook. We'll tie them in by holding them at a 45-degree angle, right at, not just before that bump we made. Pull it tight, and then when we rotate up, it should push the fibers to the top. Then I'm going to wrap back against that bump, and it will splay the tail. Now we'll come forward and tie off just a little bit, and then once we get tied down, clip off, we'll wrap forward. And the reason I'm doing this on such a small hook, I could do it on a size 14 or 16 to be a lot easier to tie, but you tie a parachute differently on those size hooks. I'm going to use a turkey T-base feather, and this is what a turkey T-base feather looks like. It's square across the top, square like this. I want to strip off everything down here that's not square across the top, and same thing on the other side. There's plenty of feather here, so if there's any questions in your mind about whether it's straight, just go ahead and get rid of it. So that's pretty straight across the top, and now I've got to take out a segment out of the center that's at least the length of the hook shank. And then I want 2 groups of fibers on either side, about 1.5 gaps in width. In other words, now one of the things about this material is you want to put a little more than you think you're going to need. And you also want to make this longer than you normally would make a parachute post. 2 reasons. First of all, if you tie it a normal length, it's going to be about yay long. You're going to post it up about this far, and you're not going to have much visibility. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this the length of the full shank. And I really, when I tie it in, make sure that you get all of that length. And again, I'm going to tie in basically the same way, over, pull, and wrap to go up. And I'm not going to post this up yet or do any wraps underneath it because I want it to lie down like that until I get done with the next step. And then I'm going to pull this down, and if I cut it at an angle like this, it'll taper it toward the end. And so I want to place the scissors so that my cut ends where the tail starts. All right, and there's enough left here. I can gather these fibers and make another post on the next fly. So now that I've done that, I'm going to wrap down these fibers. When I get back almost to the tail, I want to stop just before the tail. This is the small eastern blue-winged olive, and the body color for the small eastern is a brightish green. This is a Goose Biot, which is a short biot, but it'll work fine on a hook this small, which is the same biot that you use for tailing on a Prince Nymph or on a Copper John, something like that. Tear this off. And the reason you want to tear it off is that when you've torn it off, you'll see there's a little notch here. And as it turns out, one side of this biot is smooth and the other side of it is kind of fuzzy. If you face this toward the front or toward the eye of the fly, you'll wind up with a fuzzy ribbing. And if you face it toward the back, you'll wind up with a smooth ribbing. And for this fly, I'm going to want to face it toward the back. Now, the way I decide how to tie it in is the side I'm looking at, the side I want to be outside, goes down toward the body of the fly. Just like on tinsel that's two-sided, you have a gold side and a silver side. If you want the gold side out, you put it down. So you put the side you want out down. And this part of the biot is very tender, so you want to make sure you're tying back here. So what I want to do here is I want to stick the biot down and make sure I catch it right there. I don't have to go all the way back to the tail because I'm going to take the first wrap right at the tail, and then I just bring the thread forward. If you have trouble with these breaking on you, go ahead and soak them in water before you do this. This is the Hackle plier that I'm going to use, and so I'm going to go ahead and put it on, and I want to grab this like so. Then remember, the side that's tied in down is the side I want to wrap toward me. So that first wrap, be careful with. It's the most tender part of the biot. And then we want to go around and notice this edge, if you can see it, the front edge is a little bit fuzzy and the back edge is smooth. And what's going to happen as we wrap is it's going to cover up the raised or the fuzzy edge. Obviously, if you wrapped it with the biot pointing in the other direction, you would leave the fuzzy edge exposed. If you look at some of the shots of some of the naturals on trout nut, you'll see that some of them do in fact have a fuzzy or a cilia, little fibers they look like, at the edges of their segments. So now that that's wrapped down, here you have to make a decision. If you want to put a thorax in, you can dub a thorax. Kapok is what I'm going to use. So these are kind of the colors in the natural series that we got to choose from. The thorax is not olive. It's more of a combination, I think, of a yellow like a sulfurea and an olive or a BWO. So I've got a little bit mixed up. This is a mixture of olive and sulfurea. And you'll see I don't have much of it. I don't need much of it. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit in there. Grab another pinch. Just a suggestion in dubbing. Really squeeze it. Squeeze it down tight. So now I've got enough dubbing on there to make a little thorax. You can just do this with the thread if you want to. You don't have to dub it. I'm just doing it because it looks a little bit neater. I've got the thorax and the body of the fly ready. I've got to post up this wing. What I want to do is I want to pull it back as far as I can get it. Take some wraps right in under next to it and pull back as I'm doing. I want to build up enough so that it stays upright. And then I want to take a wrap as close to the hook shank as I can keep the thread. I want to get it all the way around that post. And I'm going to take a second wrap. second wrap halfway around, I'm going to pull it tight. I'm going to tell you, at this point, if you pull on this thread, it'll all come off that post. So what you want to do is just keep the thread a little loose. Don't lift up on the bobbin. Keep the bobbin down. If you need to grab it, grab it. And I want about a quarter, you saw me, I lost it. I want about an eighth of an inch. I'm going to wrap around the shank, and then I'm going to set that whole thing up. Make sure it's standing up, and push that post straight and back it up if you need to. I really need an eye length if I can get it right here. I'm going to use a little bit of UV resin. Just get it on a bodkin, and I'm going to put it on those wraps of Biot. And at the same time, I'm going to go back just a little bit to the tail, and I'm going to take my fingernail and push it up against that tail to splay the tail out. And then I'm also going to put a little bit on these wraps. Cure the whole thing. And that's going to keep your tail in an upright position. It's also going to stiffen up that post so you'll have fewer troubles wrapping the hackle. All right, so here is a hackle feather from a cape. This is a dun colored cape. I want this hackle to be just a little bit larger than normal. So on a size 18, I want to use about a size 16 hackle nuts. And then when I trim this, and I've already got this trimmed most of the way, I'm going to tie it in with a shiny side out. And I want to trim off a little bit on this side, and I want to trim off a little more on the side that's going to go next to the hook. And that's so I can wrap it better with a wrap very securely and leave the thread hanging right there. I'm going to get hold of the hackle with the same set of pliers that I had before, and I want to go down at least a little bit. About 5 or 6 wraps is good here. And I'm 4 or 5 turns there, and then I'm going to come down, make sure I finish at the bottom right above the shank, and then I'm going to take the thread and I'm going to go over this feather, and from here on out you got to maintain tension. If you lose the tension, you won't like the result. Stroke all this back, then I'm going to take a wrap over. Now you notice if I just leave a few feathers there and I hold the thread tight, they sort of move out of the way. If you've got a good hackle and you've got them up at least some, you can count on, and that right there is why for flies this small, if you had the straight eye, it would not have slipped off because the eye would have been facing forward. You will trap some here. Avoid what you can. Now, you get a couple good wraps around that. Tip of your scissors in there, just let the hackle pliers fall. Maintain the tension. Tighten up on your thread, pull everything you can get hold of back. Take a few wraps. Grab your whip finish tool. I'm hanging the thread over my third finger. I need my first 2 to do this, and I'm going to do 3-turn whip finish. One thing here, if I had set that post back just a little further, I wouldn't have the problem I have. And once I get everything trimmed out of the way, clip the thread. And now I'm going to fix, since I pulled it back, I need to fix it flat and then we'll just fluff everything up, brush everything where it goes, and there you go. There is a small Eastern BWO.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe for all our videos and tight lines.